Jesus' encounter with the Sadducees in Luke's Gospel is really part of a whole series of tests, clarifications about what Jesus believes from people who are growing suspicious of him because really he doesn't measure up to what their expectations are of a Messiah. The things that he's talking about, he clarifies in this passage that he does believe in the resurrection. So it's not really a passage about marriage as such. For everybody that's kind of listening to it and thinking about their own situations in marriage and then thinking about, well, what's it going to be like in heaven? I thought, this person that I love, will I not be with them in heaven? And all of that kind of stuff. It's not really about marriage. It's really about clarification about what Jesus believes about life after death, that there is one for a start, that Jesus believes that there are angels, that God has messengers and spirits at work. It's also a clarification about what we're going to be like in heaven, that we're going to be like children of God. There's references here that would resonate with his audience at the time about angels and about what it means to be a child of God, a son of God. So Jesus is really giving this clarification of what kind of Messiah, what kind of anointed one he is, what kind of prophet he is, with this understanding. Perhaps most importantly, what we're beginning to see is that Jesus is saying, we can't be so limited by this world. The Sadducees were probably incredibly wealthy aristocrats who lived in and around the temple area. These were people who believed that any justice or reward was going to be received in this life. They had a motive for believing that because it sort of justified their own way of life, their own wealth. It sort of said to them and to the world that this wealth that they possessed, this great wealth and power that they had, was really reward from God in this life, and that's what we've got to focus on. What Christ is saying to us by really affirming this belief in the resurrection and life after death is that our focus should not just be on this life, that we have to have a very broad focus, that we have to really think about our eternal destiny, that we are going to live a life after death in heaven with God, with each other, as something like the angels. And so that should give us a real perspective on what we make important, what we take serious in this life. And essentially, what we need to take seriously in this life is God. This week we had a mass with one of the classes from our primary school, and in the end I got one of the little children to come up because an answer she was giving to a question I'd asked after the gospel was just so fantastic. Everybody needed to hear it, and so I said, go ahead, what were you saying to us? And she said, God's not saying to you and me that this world and things in this world and our families are not important. But what he's saying to you and me is God is most important. And if we treat him as the most important thing, then everything else will fall into place. I can't really put it any better than that. That if we make sure that we attend to the things of God, that we really focus on our relationship with God, if we really nurture that, we really seek to do God's will and really place him at the centre of our lives, then everything else in this life and the next will have its proper place. And we don't need to be overly concerned with what that's going to look like. We just need to be overly concerned with making Christ, God, the centre of our lives.